Player Will.
Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here, and maybe not welcome back. Maybe you are a new player to War of the Visions. This is a tier list to help solidify your account, and this is going to be a tough one to talk through, but I think should be very helpful. And let's get into the context of why I'm making this video. Now, Woodstock Wins, one of the best manual players in the game, and a friend pointed this out to me that this is the context that kicked it all off. We've had an influx of newer accounts in the guild, getting a ton of questions about how to team build post-Joom. It was a new unit that came out at the 4th anniversary 4 or 5 months ago. What units pre-Joom are worth investing in, if any, and how to build around a hyper carry like Shreka long term. Any chance, be interested in doing this, you get the point. So this is to hopefully start to answer that question. Team building in War of the Visions is a little bit of a science, and that's the whole purpose of this channel. I have a variety of videos from damage calculations, team showcases where you can kind of get an idea of what I build, and generally just listening to the content, not only the videos I do, but the weekly Monday night Leonis Report podcast that I do with JB79, another amazing content creator you absolutely should be subscribing to if you aren't and are new to the game. But without further ado, there's a couple really important things here for context that hopefully will not make this as controversial as it might seem when I actually present this. So number one, this is not an is this unit good tier list. I'm not saying you should go out and pull these characters or value them as such, and we'll see why more in a second. Number two, this does not take current meta into account. This is, hey, this is a new player. They want to build a healthy account over time. I'm not trying to live in the prisoner of the moment when I know that some of these units might take a month or two, or maybe even more, to finally get up to their maximum potential. Number three, this does not take vision cards into account, which is its own, quite honestly, presentation, which I'll likely try to do. And while vision cards are exceptionally important in the game, when you are starting out with a brand new account, characters are one of the more easier ways to build your team because you need characters to play the game. You can't just make a team of vision cards. You need to make a team of characters. So this is priority number one. And once you have that core of characters, then you can really think about how to maximize their value with things like vision cards and espers and equipment. That's all the level 2, level 3, level 4 stuff as you continue to build out your account. It's all important, but this is definitely the building block. Now, this is a general ranking of how I value the permanent pool units for newer players in the game and getting their account to a relatively playable place to start their PvP journey and clear some necessary PvE content because they're getting all this equipment from scratch. They have to go do Farplane archives to clear equipment. They might have to go into multi to farm that equipment or have a good farming team to be able to do the background farming for those stages. So that is part of this. And I have specifically excluded the certain units because, again, if I'm taking the perspective that this is for new players, no limited units are in this tier list. So any kind of collabs, prior Final Fantasy units, seasonal units, they're not in this. Number two, all Crystal Warrior units. These are limited banner units. They are not permanent pool. Characters like Raph and Velis, yes, they could be good for a new account, but they're not permanent pool, so you can't get them on things like unit selector tickets or monthly login charts and how you exchange stuff. And number three, the same thing for the global festival units. Units like Starlight Elena, Freyevia, those are banner units, not permanent pool, so they are not included in this. So, finally the reveal, and I'm still going to talk through a little bit about this before I go through some of the tiers individually. This is my general value tier list for a new account of how investable some of these units are. Now, a couple things to talk through specifically first before I go through each one of the tiers a little more in depth. Number one, I have two boxed sets of units here. This top group here are called the Veritas units. These are units that are free to acquire by doing various types of content in the game. I'm not going to get into exactly how at this moment, but these are units that are not in the permanent pool, but you can get by completing this content, which for most of them is really no content at all. It's basically just daily activity that you have to engage in to get those shards over time. The other group here, which is rated much lower, is these selection quest units. And while these on paper might seem good for newer players because they are also technically free to acquire, these stages, in order to clear them, require MR rarity or lower units, and you need a team of 5 of them to clear this content and to get these units at a very high playable level, 120, 140. I think it's too much of an investment in MR rarity units that's a bad thing for a new account. I think that's a misallocation of resources. So while this is cool that these are technically free units to acquire, the investment you have to make in irrelevant characters, quite frankly, is too high for what you're going to get out of them. Now, the third thing to point out here, I have a couple units here that I do think are a little bit higher than they should be, but I've specifically called out if they have a TMR that I think is particularly helpful for a new account. Now, there's obviously lots of TMRs that are helpful for new accounts, and if you're a new player, a TMR you acquire at level 99 of a unit, so they don't even need to be the max of level 120 or level 140. Once you get to level 99, these TMRs, I think on average, tend to be some of the best value that I see used very prevalently, and it's one of the reasons why these units might be a smidge higher, and take that into context that they don't need to be max level. This is really more about the TMR and getting them to level 99. So I'm going to start off with some of my thoughts and going through each one of these tiers. The highest tier here is the highest priority. These 6 units are all brand new, relatively speaking, in the last 6 months as permanent pool units, and absolutely highest priority to build if you happen to pull them. These are exceptionally strong characters made for the current state of the game. It will absolutely carry your account as you continue to build it out. The second tier here are characters that are still strong to bolster your account. They're not game breaking when you might hear us talk about them in regular conversation about the meta or top end play, but these are still exceptionally strong units that will absolutely carry some of your early on PvP fights, help you in some PvE content, and a couple of them you can even get upon a new account creation where I know Flagbearer Glaciella, Bridal Elia, and Young Eld are all selectable as free summon units on your 4-step when you create a new account. So those units in particular, and actually I think the Young Helena unit might be too. So these units absolutely for a new account, if you're getting them, they're going to bolster your account alongside the Veritas units. The thing with the Veritas units is these are units that slow build over time. You will not be able to max them day one or even remotely close. You will slowly trickle medals that you will acquire for these units in various kinds of content like Arena or Free Match or Guild Wars, and you can exchange them over time for the units and the shards to max them. So this is the kind of thing you should start day one when you join the game because it's going to take you a while, but it's absolutely worth the investment. They are free. They are quality units. Definitely do that. Now this next tier here are units that I do still think are good value. These are units that I do still think help well round your account. I have a couple different supports in here. I have a couple different tanks in here. Different kinds of costs in here, 100 costs and 70 costs. I do actually have the Lucio unit here, who is technically a warrior of the crystal unit, who I said I was going to be omitting, but because he is a free unit and you can get him to max for free, this is an excellent early on unit to also aim for. So absolutely look out for how you acquire Lucio, and certainly ask questions about doing so, and go to the Discords and ask about that too to clear the stages. But I do think the rest of these units are relatively safe investments for a new account to still clear some general content and some low PvP competition. Now this third category are more minor role players to help bridge the gap for you. I don't see these units as long-term characters that are going to help carry your account, but in getting there, I do think there is some value there. There are some decently power-crept lower-tier supports like Ayaka and Resnick. There are some tanks like Charlotte and Engelbert who can help you bridge that gap as you build out those teams. There are some great farming DPS units like Skahal here, as well as the old Helena the Black Robe. And these are mostly units that tend to fall in the 100 cost category still, that although they've fallen back a little bit in the stage of the game, in the permanent pool, they are still relatively decent. Now, this fourth category is really, to me, not worth the materials to invest in. And that's why I have the selection quest units here, because to me, the materials to get all those MR rarity units up to par to clear those stages is not worth what you get out of it. And a couple of these other units, while sure, there are still some units here who might have good TMRs, who might be new player friendly, I don't really think they're worth the materials to get them up to max, considering you could use those materials to all these characters above them. And finally, the fifth category, these are units that, no disrespect to them, but appreciate their art. That's the best thing about them. There are obviously some good TMRs here still, and some very niche characters that might help you in farming some PvE content, but I would not spend anything material-wise to upgrade these units if I could help it. And again, to emphasize, this is not a ranking of how good I think these characters are. I think these are who are the best value for a new account and how long they can take you to bridge the gap as you continue to accumulate things. But that's the best way I know how to describe this, because it is relatively complex. That is probably one of the good things and bad things about this game if you are new. Yes, the team building is kind of difficult, but at the same time, that's one of the rewarding things about this game is that there is a ocean of things you can do to constantly learn more about the game, to spend time mocking and figuring out these unique character kits that as much time as you'll put into it, you will get all of that back out of it. So this is hopefully the first step to kind of figuring out some of that. But per usual, comments, critiques, criticisms, all of that, throw that in the comment section below. And for any kind of veteran players too, obviously love to hear your thoughts too. Obviously, my voice is just one of many on the perspective of how a new account should tackle which units to prioritize in the permanent pool. At the end of the day, you got to make a team of 3 characters, right? You can't just pull Joom and have Joom solo carry. You need 2 other units to go alongside with her. So that's hopefully to help address this of how you can kind of build that team of 3 and iteratively build up your account over time to get it to a spot where you're ready to take that next step. But that's everything for now. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to y'all soon.